What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to go over 3 ways that I think Star Wars Jedi Survivor can be better than Fallen Order. Now, obviously, when you make a sequel to a game, the point is to make it bigger and better. That tends to be what happens in terms of scale, in terms of size, right? But also in terms of quality. So you do expect that Survivor would be better than Fallen Order. However, that's not a guarantee. There's often sequels that are not as good, right? The first time is the best, and they can never recapture it. So I want to go over 3 specific things, each a little bit different from each other. So the first one is more story oriented, but specifically the ending. So how Survivor can be better than Fallen Order, simply do a better ending. Now, what I mean by this, to make it clear, the Vader scene in Fallen Order is spectacular. It is badass. It is incredibly intimidating. I love how they handled it. I love how powerful they made Vader. I'm not talking about the mission. I'm not talking about Trilla, kind of the forgiveness angle, right? There's a lot of very good elements in the ending of Fallen Order. What I mean very specifically is literally the last maybe 5 minutes of the game, the ending, the holocron destroying it, and really it seems like there should have been more build up there. I've always had this complaint. I do think I'm not alone in this complaint. I think a lot of people did think that the ending of this game was rushed, and Respawn themselves have talked about this. They have said that they did have to cut some stuff from the ending, and it was rushed because they were on a deadline. Sounds like they wanted it out in that November period right before the Star Wars movie that came out that following December, right? 1 month later. So they were on a timeline, and they were kind of rushed to get that ending done. So I think just by nature of that, as long as this game doesn't feel rushed, doesn't feel like things are awkwardly cut out, which, by the way, granted, Jedi Fallen Order, it's really just the ending that I feel that way. I think the game's pacing is pretty darn good. It doesn't feel like anything was like cut off last second, like it needed more explanation. It was really the ending when they're on the ship and then they make the decision for the holocron. Didn't feel like it was really building towards that. That kind of felt like something maybe you would do in the next game or somewhere in between, 1 and 2. Didn't feel like that's exactly how it should have gone. The second thing I think Jedi Survivor could improve upon is the locking on / the actual fighting. So this is also, I would say, pretty specific, but now we're going more towards gameplay. A pet peeve of mine in Jedi Fallen Order, and I had just replayed it to get ready for Survivor, so it's kind of fresh on my mind. The way enemies will attack you and the way Cal will block or then parry, right? It's such a big part of this game, learning enemies' fighting mechanics, learning what they do, what they don't do, right? Planning your attack. The game, I believe, gets confused kind of often. If you're not perfectly centered on an enemy, if the lock-on isn't perfectly centered, oftentimes you will be blocking or you'll parry just at the right time, and the game won't allow that. You'll still get hit. Now, I will say this. In one of the first gameplay reveals we got of Survivor, I think it was IGN's 9-minute reveal, there is a very specific scene where this actually looks to happen again. They're not locked on, but Cal is generally facing an enemy, and it is blocking the enemy, and the enemy still gets off 2 or 3 hits on Cal. So I still think this could be an issue, which would be disappointing because I think this was a gameplay flaw in the first game, and if it's still the exact same problem here, that would not be so great. But this is, I would say, a very specific issue, more along the lines of forgiveness, I guess, right? That if you're looking, if Cal is somewhat centered on an enemy, even if you're not locked onto that enemy, you should be able to block. You shouldn't take damage. You should be able to parry, whatever. The game normally doesn't allow that, and it can get pretty messy when there's several enemies. Sometimes the camera gets a little confused, especially with locking on. I found that happen to me, at least myself personally, that happened quite a bit in Fallen Order. I hope it's fixed here. Early signs, I'm going to be flat out honest, early signs show me that it hasn't been fixed, but yet again, that was a couple months ago, right? It's possible they fixed it very recently. And then the third way this game can be better is by making things bigger and better. So look, at the end of the day, and I truly do believe this, Fallen Order is a phenomenal game. Fallen Order is one of the best Star Wars games that have ever come out. Fallen Order is one of the best games that came out in 2019. I adore that game. I think that game, again, pacing, the story of that game, I think is extremely good. The flashbacks, the music, the atmosphere, the characters, the fighting. I think this game, you know, the Souls-born kind of mentality in a Star Wars game, I think it does it awesome. So there's not too much that this game needs to do in terms of just being good, right? What does Survivor need to do to be good generally? Needs to really copy a lot of Fallen Order and just don't mess it up. So I think the idea, and they're already doing this, we're already seeing this, the idea of bigger and better. Kobo is such a huge planet. You can spend multiple hours. These preview event people, you know, that did it, they spent 3 hours just playing on one planet. They didn't even do everything, right? So the idea that let's take everything that worked about Jedi Fallen Order, let's apply it here, let's make it bigger, let's have more enemy types, let's have more lightsaber stances, right? In the first game, you could really only have 2. They've more than doubled that now, right? Now you can only have 2 equipped at a time, but there's 5 in all. So they've done really this bigger and better kind of mentality. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Really just add on to it, right? Make it more expansive. The story and characters, of course, those are, while you're basing it off of Fallen Order, and it's the continuation of this, there is going to be a lot of new. So I guess the story does not have to hit just as good as it did last time. The boss fights, the bosses in general, there's no guarantee that they're going to be better. There is a lot of like brand new things they're going to have to do to make this game worth it. But the core of what Fallen Order is the core of an extremely good game. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.